welcome to Culture of Paint. In this episode, we're going to take a look back at what's caught our eye over the last couple of weeks in the miniatures painting world. For the main segment, we're going to talk about the recent Golden Demon over here in the UK and pick out some of our personal favourites. And we'll close out the show, as usual, taking a look at what the hashtag Paint Cultists have been up to. Now, Culture of Paint's aimed at a mature audience, and we might use explicit language and discuss adult themes. Now, let's talk about paint. Okay, and we're back. And are we still rumbling? That's the question.
Rumbling!
Do we need to move some things
Skeletor
around?
says.
Who's eating popcorn?
Me.
We're all right. Okay, we're all in. So, chat is in. That's all live. Lovely. Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Henry, and joining me, as usual, are Matt, Andy, and Rich. Hello, chaps. How are we doing?
Hello.
All right.
Well, that was enthusiastic.
Hey!
Hi,
guys.
now, mate. Had a whole week off painting, getting the, I don't know, itch.
Hey, getting ready to go again. Ready for another trophy.
Too much building. I'm like, ugh, building.
I know. It's going to be a few months
coming
up, mate.
I feel attacked by Mike in the chat. I know why it was late. Andy's reading his book and Rich was getting a drink. That is exactly what I was doing, actually. Look would have it.
Hey,
I had my drink ready, pal.
Super professional. Worth every penny, this podcast. So, let's crack on. Last few weeks, what are we doing for our picks? I think we said we're going to do for our picks, rather than what we've seen out and about, it was going to be a few of our sort of little faves that we saw at GD the last weekend. Am I right? I'm trying to remember. We talk about a lot of things.
Yes.
And obviously, I haven't got the slides ready, so I'm just going to wing it. Right. So,
yeah, I'll tell you.
What's up first, Matt? I had a look earlier. I think it's my one first, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Is she up on screen?
It is.
So this is these are our favourites that didn't win for all of them, correct?
Correct. Yeah, favourites that didn't make top three.
Fantastic.
So this one for me was one I kept going back to, and I like when I was walking around with other people, I was like, "Oh, you got to come and see this one. You got to come see this one." And to be fair, there were so many of them. Like,
yeah, there was.
And that's not just the volume was, and we'll talk about this a bit later. Not just the volume was high, but the volume of cool stuff was really high. And for me, things like this are what I get excited about with Golden Demon. Like, I'm bowled over by the work of the guys in Single, and some of the stuff they produce. Absolutely. But this is the stuff that gets me going. It's the stuff I remember from when I was a kid. It's the dioramas, it's the jewels. And this one was just, I think I said it to Andy, I could picture the White Dwarf article about this one with all the cool little additional photos and all the little secret little, what do they call them, Easter eggs and things like that.
Wow.
Around it. I just think it's just great. And I don't know whether it made commended, actually. I'd be surprised if it didn't. But it was certainly,
Pretty sure this did.
Yeah. As we'll talk a bit about later, it was quite hard finding out what did make commended and what didn't and stuff. So, but every time I was able to, I would just stand there and chill out and look at this one for a little bit.
It was commended.
Was commended, excellent. But yeah, so just huge congrats to this person. But yeah, what do you think? What do you guys think of it?
Love it.
I think I'll let someone else go.
It's just really screams old world fantasy. Like that would be in sort of the army book, and you'd have like a whole write-up about it, and it'd be great.
It's proper Warhammer, right?
It's giving very Mike McVeigh vibes.
Exactly. All of that, just classic Warhammer goodness.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's out of a book, doesn't it? Like,
yeah,
it's great.
So that was my pick. I've just seen Kane in the chat. Congratulations on picking up yours as well. It's very exciting. I knew I recognised the name, and this will be where I recognise it from. We'll also make sure we put everybody's accounts down in the descriptions as usual. Right. What's up next?
Up next is my one.
Yeah, I've been looking at this today, actually. I've been looking at the old, the greens of it. Fantastic.
This was, yeah, I love this. I think, in fact, he actually did talk about Mike in one of his Instagram posts as sort of the inspiration between some parts of it. But yeah, and like when you look at it in the green and everything, it's just like that flawless conversion of that Mordheim sort of style rat catcher.
It's amazing,
So
yeah.
Yeah, big time.
I didn't realise he used that. I knew it was converted, the one on top, but I didn't realise he'd used all the Underworld's head and all that, the brown plastic. It's quite easy to note.
Quite a lot of swapping on it.
Yeah,
that's always a sign in it. That's always like a proper classy piece when you assume that's the miniature.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
that is a lot. It's lovely. It's seeing like the plain version before the paint is really good. I think you look at it and go, holy shit! No, there is a lot in there, isn't there?
And then the paint job is top notch as well.
Crisp.
Old Hammer style, I think it's cool.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, it has got a lot of that. And again, there was so much stuff of that ilk, wasn't there? Like it was there was stuff people were pushing things, and they were being super creative, sort of outside that traditional GD sphere, sort of I don't want to call it heavy metal sphere because it's not heavy metal, but it is that GD style, right? And there was loads of that, but then there was an awful lot of entries that were pure, this is how I paint and here's my creation kind of thing. And it's so good to see them, because I think quite a lot of those as well sometimes don't have the what's the succinct way of putting this? Certain models look as good, if not sometimes better, in a brilliant photograph. I think maybe it's the size of the piece sometimes, but certainly I always feel like a lot of the dioramas, a lot of the jewels, a lot of things like that look way better in person. And I don't know why that is.
You need more sense of depth, because
right
when it's flat, like if you paint a single mini, it's easier to get that one plane and you can photograph it so it looks fantastic. But then if you've got things like the one we looked at before, which has got so much depth, even if your aperture's really narrow, you're not getting everything in, and it's how your eyes can focus compared to a camera, isn't it, Matt? Just like you can get that depth perception and it feels cooler. Well, at the end of the day, as we always say, it's a 3D medium. It should be seen in 3D, and then the more things that make it 3D, like things far away, then the more you need to see it in person. So I've been moaning about that in my latest Patreon video, actually. After reading all the comments saying stuff shouldn't win when people are looking at the photos online.
Yeah.
Well, quite. Someone said in the chat there, Tetra, you can imagine that as one of those black and white bits of artwork in an old Skaven or Empire Army book. It's got big old world vibes, hasn't it?
Yep.
Which was
so
rather
good.
fitting, given all the old world goodness we sort of were given at the weekend. So, what was everyone's favourite piece at the last GD? Heimdall's asking. If you're meaning the one a few months ago in the US, we did an episode like 3 episodes ago or whatever, I think, where we had a natter about it. So, if you're talking about the 35th anniversary one last year, we've also done an episode on that one. So, plenty. We love talking about Golden Demon. There's no two ways about it. So, we've probably had a natter. Right. So that was, whose pick was that one?
That was mine.
Matt's.
Nice. Right. Who's up next?
Couldn't resist.
Oh, it's me.
Nice. So
I picked it. It was hard. There was so much stuff, like so much stuff. There was a few that I really liked, but I just something about this. The only way that I just don't want
Blue Space Marine.
Well, yeah, it's a Space Marine for starters. The 1,000 Suns, which I love. It's all right. It's perfectly fine. But it's the thing I kept going back to look at the most. Like, if you think about it, when we're at GD, we do, through filming it and just being there, whatever, you do laps. and you can just go around looking at a lot of stuff multiple times. Whereas this was the thing that I kind of paused at the most, or just kept going to look at the most. I think, just because it was really cool.
Yeah, I
love
nearly picked this one, mate. Great choice.
Yeah, I love seeing the idea of some of the really classic, especially because it's Space Marines with me, like Space Marine legions and chapters blown up because you have so much more extra little detail that you can't get in a regular size Space Marine model. And I think it just adds quite a little bit more of like narrative to it and a bit more of story to it. And the color palette is amazing, even though I sound just like Andy when I say that, so I don't know what the fuck's going on with that. But yeah, I just loved it. I thought it was great. Love the colors. It's bro. Basically,
again, it's one of them. This is why you go to Golden Demon to see this kind of thing, right? And it's just so. Oh man, the open category was so good.
I think we're going to have a whole chat about it.
We are, right?
Pacific Ocean later on.
Someone's asked in the chat, do we know how many entries there were? I know on Saturday morning, Sunday morning, sorry, because it was on a Monday in the end. And on the first day of entries, by close of play, I think there was 1,300 entries had gone in, and there was still over half a day for people to enter. So
last I heard, there was just under 2,000, and there was 750 individual people.
Right.
So I heard there was 440k single.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Which is pretty
mad.
Can I just answer a question?
Yeah, go for it, because they're all going to be coming in. We may as well, because it's just going to be a general natter, isn't it? This one, I think, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So, do you think there'll be a gold or a Slayer sword that isn't
I was about to ask you that.
in the heavy metal adjacent style? Yes, the last two Slayer swords. The Albert's wasn't heavy metal style. Maxime's, which was, could have got the sword, wasn't heavy metal style, and Chris Clayton's wasn't heavy metal style at all. So there you go.
There we are.
Answers that.
Lots of people loving it. Yeah, it was so good, man. Like, we'll get to our thoughts on the actual event as a whole later, but it's going to become pretty clear that we thought GD was flipping great. And a large part of that was to see just the sheer amount of minis in those cabinets. Like, it was mad getting to the awards ceremony and seeing people going up on the stage commended, and I hadn't even seen their entries in the cabinets.
Yeah.
Amazing, absolutely amazing.
Commended things were the hardest to see over the weekend, though.
Because being photographed. I mean, the guys worked hard, didn't they? Getting the photos and getting judged. And we'll mention it now. We'll mention it at the end, and we'll link it and all the rest of it. They have started putting the commended entries, photos of them, up on the Warhammer community site, so you can go and see them, which is fab. They've done part 1, which presumably means there's going to be more parts. So well done everyone who shouted about that and asked them to do it. They've obviously listened, which is great.
Hashtag did it first.
Yeah, and I mean, it saved Matt doing it, so he was able to go out and enjoy his birthday.
Got hammered.
Had
loads of flavoursome treats.
So did you have a pick for this one, Andy, or are we going
2 right? And you're going to love it. It's for you.
I still can't find the slides, so I'm
I've put them in the chat for you, pal.
No, I've done work, mate. Just get 404 link, but people don't
scroll up. Scroll up in the chat.
Look, it doesn't matter whether I can see the slides or not. Get them up. I'll see them in a minute. I'd have seen them by now already.
Have a click on that one.
Oh my goodness, beautiful, love it.
So I picked this, and I love it regardless. But Henry and I said how you should do the Kroot is a vignette of a couple. This is exactly how I think the Kroot should be done. It's kind of why I wanted to do those Corvus Cabal, but I just think, like, sometimes you're like, well, I don't want to do a single Kroot. I don't want to do a whole squad. And a small vignette like this is awesome. It tells a little story. It's more than a single mini. Petting the little dog is amazing. I think the problem, and I'm sure he just wanted to do it anyway, but I think it'd be difficult to win with a piece like this. Was this in squad or diorama?
Squad.
I think, in squad. I mean, of course, it could win, but I think it's always going to be difficult, right? And it would probably struggle in diorama because it's small as well. So
Well,
I don't know. What do you think about that?
There was that unit, wasn't there, of 3 Orc Blood Bowl thing, which took an award in AOS unit.
That's yeah, that's right.
And that was beautiful. And admittedly, when I saw that in the cabinets, I had exactly what you're saying there. I was like, that's beautiful. It's right up my street. I don't imagine it will place. And then it did, and it was, it was wonderful. But I did see another entry in Squad, which was the whole of that crew kill team. And they were painted lovely, and they look fab. But I almost wonder if they're a bit too, I don't know if busy's the right word, or they're not necessarily the easiest miniatures to look at. I think the crew,
they're hard to show off,
right? And they just, there's a lot going on their silhouette crew, and when you saw them sort of as a big unit, I actually think this has more impact than the whole unit did. That's not to say the unit wasn't great and the paint job was great. It really was. But, I mean, this is just... It's funny, actually, you mentioned your Corvus Cabal one. It's very, very similar vibe, isn't it?
I just think it's such a nice... if you got a set that comes out, we often talk about scratching an itch, right? And it's like, you don't want to do a single. You don't want to do a kill team to play. So what do you do? And this is such a nice thing to own. I'd love to own this on the shelf, right? But yeah, it's the sort of thing that when something similar comes out, I would like to do little things like this. And I think for me, probably not to enter. But yeah, something like this could definitely win. But I guess the same as everything, it has to be immaculate and stuff like that. But I wonder if expanding it out to diorama, it's a tough size thing, right? A vignette for a Golden Demon, because it's like, does a diorama need to be this big elaborate thing? Does a squad need to be, again, like a big chunky squad?
But the rules around squad have muddied that, haven't they? We've now. I always felt there was a little bit of muddying with Duel, and you guys always argued that Duel had a place and all this, and I was sort of like, I feel maybe Duel should just be in diorama, but whatever. The way squad is now, sort of, like,
I think
when you mentioned the Iron Warriors one, right? It was superb, but I really struggle to understand as a fan watching Golden Demon how Neil's Dark Angel gets moved because of that base being too ostentatious or whatever, and then the Iron Warriors one doesn't. Both the bases were awesome. Both the pieces were awesome. The problem is not with Neil or the person who did the Iron Warriors thing. I want to make that super clear. But it was confusing as a fan to watch and understand where that fit, especially as Squad is now also basically a collection of miniatures. It doesn't necessarily have to be a squad as it is in the game, if that makes sense.
But I will say that although you can do what you want, you'll still get judged on it. So actually, it's giving you more room for errors, because a few people have been like, what do you think of my squad? And I've been like, the base is awful because it's this big. And it's like, just because you can doesn't mean you go crazy with the base. You still got to be tasteful, kind of like this. So this base is not on a gaming base. It adds to the characters, but it's tight. So I think that it's cool they've let go of the rules, and then it's still, you can still, do something poorly, right? And I think that they'll judge it on those extra things. And I think if something doesn't feel like a squad, you are allowed to enter it, but they'll probably go, this doesn't feel like a squad, and then it won't place. And then if you go, well, you can do a massive diorama base, and they go, we don't like the base. So there's actually more room for errors, I think. And it's cool that there's creative freedom there, but I think it's still down to people to make it tasteful and keep it tight and stuff like that. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of squads on massive bases, but I think still keep them tight. Don't go too, paint the base well. If you're going to do that, you need to paint the base really good. I think NRM, Nicholas Mortensen, he did a gold-winning guard squad in America, and I think that was very tastefully done because it wasn't on gaming bases. It had a like an angle, which meant he could show all the figures better, and they were tight, and it just felt classy, So I think even though the rules are letting you do what you want, you got to keep it classy, and I think this is a perfect example of that.
Christian's got a nice take on it. Just seen in the chat, diorama should tell a story, and squad should be like a group photo.
Exactly. Yeah.
There was in the commended entries. There was 3 squads of. I think they were all Krieg, or there was certainly 2 Krieg and some more Guard.
Yeah.
Was it? And 2 of them. Oh, that was it. It was 2 Krieg, and then it was Sten's Marine squad, Chaos squad, and you had one lot of the Krieg and Sten stuff on lovely black plinth gaming bases presented like that, and then you had another Krieg squad that was this really sweet little vignette, a bit like Christian's saying, a group photo, but in this base that really was quite. It was small, it was tight, but it wasn't simple. It had a pit of dead things and all the rest of it, and it must be very difficult to judge. You're already judging apples and pears a lot of the time, aren't you? Or apples and oranges, whatever you call it. Like it must have been. I couldn't do it, put it that way. I would really struggle to go right. How am I? I don't know.
It should add. It should add to the squad, and it should set them in their scene. Like, I think Roger Axelson's Orcs and Goblins squad was perfect because it's like. Yeah. These are goblins. They live in a forest. Here's a forest. It's not a diorama. It's like Christian says. It's a family photo of the goblins all looking together. I loved how there was trees and one of the trolls was holding the trees. And for me, that isn't a diorama. It's a perfect way to present a unit. If the things you're adding to your unit takes away from them, personally, I think like a backdrop and massive things is too much. So it's all just balancing those things. You can do what you want, but balance it.
What were you going to say, Matt?
I was going to say, so when I entered in the last UK one, I had a chat with one of the judges, and we were like trying to figure out, because I went a bit over top with the rats, like with the base. It's a bit, it kind of really blurs that line of what's a diorama, what's a squad. And I think the consensus we kind of came to is, where does the focus lie? If the focus is on the miniatures, it's a squad. If the focus is too much on the base with miniatures on it, then it becomes a diorama.
Agree, yeah. Nice.
I think it's important as well, like none of this is meant to be criticising people's imaginations and their painting and all the rest of it. It's just trying to understand now where squad, duel, diorama sit next to each other, in the categories.
With duel, it's not too difficult with duel because it can only really be 2 miniatures.
Wow, you say that, but then look at America.
I thought it could be more than that.
But there you go. And someone mentioning that Black Templars special model that got released, what's his name? Bob's Revenge. Can't think what he's called now. That appeared in single and it appeared in dual.
Yep.
That's weird.
You could argue both are fine. Like do you know what I mean? It's just that muddiness. I think is our problem. It's just a talking point. I'm not.
I can't.
Not.
So a duel could be, I don't know, a big dread fighting 3 Hormagaunts or something. Would that class as a duel, or would that be
that's not a duel? It's got to be two opponents, in my opinion. But then with Sergio's one, because the what are the big squigs called?
Mangler squigs.
Because the Mangler is a miniature, even though it's got 3 goblins on it, you can kind of get away from that.
I suppose. Yeah.
But that one's a funny one because it's a chase, not a duel. Because they're supposed to be at least got a shot of fighting each other, I think. So, but really, it's down to the judges. Because if someone enters their thing in the wrong cat, then they move it or they don't place it. Just leave it and don't place it. So
I think that's why having the rules as they are is, it kind of works and it kind of doesn't, because it gives them options as well as kind of muddies it a bit.
It's good for the judges to have leeway, though, I think, because it's too tough sometimes. But yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel really bad now that I didn't put the parrot versus crab duel as my. That's really close. Really.
Yeah, I was going to do that as well.
Yeah. So go and see that. It was amazing. It was perfect. It was worth the entry fee. So that's just a couple of our faves. As we've all said, there are many. Many. And I can see the word rules popping up in the chat as well, and I'm keen not to go too far down that sort of rabbit hole. But let's see where we're at after the next year's Demons. Let's see if we can put together a run of competitions with a bit of consistency and start picking things apart then when that's happened. That's my opinion anyway on that. But I would love it to be as clear for everyone as possible. I think is the key, because as anyone who's entered Golden Demon knows, it takes a lot out of you. And I've seen friends and obviously we saw Neil, didn't we? Not understanding those requirements or misinterpreting them and all the rest of it can lead to a pretty upsetting result. Through no malice, through no anything like that. So that's sort of only my thinking with that. But that aside, as well as there being hundreds, if not thousands, of amazing painted miniatures, there were a few standouts, and there were a few that basically everybody in the room was talking about from the minute we got there. Weren't there? So we're going to come on to them, but I think we've got a meme of the week, haven't we?
We do have a meme of the week.
So it's nice to get the memes back. And this one, I even think, is one I added, wasn't it?
Yep.
Is it the one I chucked in the group?
It was the safest one.
Yeah, yeah, too right. Oh my goodness me. Yeah, it's been another salty week in the world of online Warhammer commentary. But this, I don't know where it just popped up on Twitter. Wasn't anything to do with Golden Demon or anything like that. May not even have been anything to do with Warhammer.
Yeah,
but it did make me chuckle because there's I think we're going to have an episode where we talk specifically about this.
Oh, really?
But I love, obviously, it's one of the best shows on TV as well. So
Feedback's a Gift is that episode title.
Feedback's a Gift. That's all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did make me chuckle. There was a few like Charles there at the weekend. So, but let's talk about that in a future episode. I'm sure we'll put some horrific clickbaity title on there, and it will get more views than anything else, even though it's us being horrible. So there we go. There needs to be a separate category for crab jewels. I mean, it's a fair point. If there's not critters category next year, we'll
critters jewels.
All right. I can be down with that. So, Warhammer Fest Golden Demon 2023. What are we going to talk about?
Figured we'd start off strong.
pretty damn strong, right? Speaking of sacrificing to get something done, if you haven't, we've got an interview with Albert, which we managed to get about, I don't know, half an hour after he won the sword, and I had no idea quite how much people were sacrificing to get some of these things. So if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's only about 10 minutes, and it's amazing, as is this piece. And Andy, you basically can stop looking at Warhammer on the internet now, right? This is
completed Warhammer.
Eldar plus elf kits. Painted by Albert.
I mean, I'm going to paint something, and everyone's going to say I've copied this. But you all know my favourite thing is Lumineth and Eldars and turquoise and purple and non-metallics, right? So yeah, I will be doing some Lumineth something. So I can't wait for people saying I've copied this. But yeah, it's me down to a T. It's really nice actually to get tons of inspiration, because there's stuff you think's cool, but it's very rare that something that aligns with you so much, right? So yeah, like Maxime's Nurgle is unbelievable, the painting. I couldn't believe it when I was looking at it, and I was learning just by holding it, but I don't like Nurgle. So Nurgle Space Marines, I'm like, absolutely not. But yeah, this is a bit of me. So I didn't want to see it. He was kind of like, oh, I think I could show you a photo at one point, and I was like, nope, I want to see it on the day, and just be hit by the finished thing, right?
Right. So rather than just sitting here gushing about it, which everyone's going to do, I thought we could take the opportunity. Andy, you are a very winning painter. You're right at the top of your game at the minute. You're very involved in the competitive painting scene, if you want to call it that. Rich and Matt, obviously, both of you guys big into it as well. But a lot of our friends and our peers were there at the weekend as well, which was, for me, easily the best part of the whole weekend. But when I walked in on Sunday morning, all I was hearing on the drive up when I got there, oh, it's over, the sword's over, it's between these two, it's done, right? What, as other than the fact that it's just fun to hype things and you know, be very black and white about stuff, what about this piece is immediately making you go, oh, this isn't just gold, this is just, like the fact it's won the category is a foregone conclusion, it's immediately a sword contender? What sort of things are you seeing on this that's making you say that?
Shall I go?
Go for it.
Well, I think it's got instant wow factor, and what does that come from? Well, you know, every single part is rendered with a lot of contrast, and that's instantly eye-catching, right? You got dark shadows, lots of highlights, so it's that instant massive impact. And the technical side is, you know, borderline immaculate. He's done every single tiny bit as best as he can. It's really, really smooth. So you have that, you know, huge impact from having all these bright highlights and colors, but it's also coherent. So I guess you get a kind of smack around the face with all the highlights, but then when you study it, it's hard to find flaws, you know. So you got those things. And if you know Golden Demon, what they look for, what they like, you know, they do actually, this time we did see stuff when that wasn't immaculate. That's a bit to go talk about later. But in general, they do like stuff that's technically very well executed. So I think when you've got something that has such a visual impact like this and it's technically well done, you just know, right? It's very rare to see a miniature rendered to this high quality, I think.
What about you, Matt, as someone who has probably looked at more Golden Demon entries than anyone I know? Particularly photos of it. Like, again, you were banging the drum. It was this or Maxime. Like, again, what is it? What would you add to that?
I mean, I just really echo most of what Andy said. Like, every single piece of this is done to the best of his ability. He's not half-assed any part of it. He's not gone, oh, I'm going to focus on this bit and then this bit will be a bit looser. Like, every part is equally as good as every other part. It's just, yeah, I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he can commit to just pushing through that barrier and just doing it. It's like, that's like a difficult part in itself. Is like committing to that mentally to actually want to do that.
I think that's experience. And for me personally, as my journey goes on, I feel more becoming like that, because I don't personally have a desire to paint a lot of miniatures anymore. I want few that I'm happy with, and I would happily paint. If I wasn't doing videos for YouTube, I'd happily paint 3 miniatures in the next year. There's 3 I want to do, and that's it. And I'd happily spend 4 months on each, I think. But I'm going to do some videos, so I probably should do more than that. But I think, you know, when he won the Slayer Sword 17 years ago, so I just think you get to a point probably where, yeah, you don't desire to do a high volume. What's more important is having something this epic to someone like Albert, I think.
Yeah. And like it's not immediately obvious, but like the amount of different kits that are in this one kit, he basically bought that entire box and made one model out of it.
And an Eldar model. Just chuck that in as well.
And an old Eldar Guardian.
There we are. Yeah, but again, like we mentioned earlier, it's that skill, isn't it, of making it look like an out of box model almost.
Yeah, I've been laughing at a few of the comments, which I shouldn't, because not everyone's as much of a Warhammer geek as me and knows stuff. But I loved comments on Maxime's like, yeah, I think it's a kit bash. I was like, yeah, big kit bash on Maxime's. They're like, yeah, it's definitely typhus, 100% typhus. I was like, yeah. I don't know.
The internet is a wonderful place.
Yeah. But yeah, this one, I don't think I could name every kit. I can't remember where the dragon crest is from. Is it from the dragon dudes? The what are they called?
The Dragon Princes.
Is it a Dragon Prince helmet?
Could be.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for him to put a picture up of before he started painting it. I just want to see all the different shades of grey plastic.
Yeah, and all that.
I just love it as a warlock.
It's I think what you were saying, it's that thing in it that you've got the impact from seeing it in the cabinet or seeing it at first glance because of that high contrast thing. But you can get, I mean, this is blown up very large and
it's tiny.
In my opinion, like, it's a good photo, but I preferred it in the hand, well, in the cabinet in front of me. But you could get as close as you want, and you're not like, enhance, and it's not getting worse. You just keep going and keep going, which is pretty rad. And now the base caused a little bit of conversation, and I'm sure neither of the painters will mind us talking about this. But this was brought up by multiple different people when, as I said, there was this conversation that it was going to be Maxime with his Nurgle model, which we'll see in a second, or Albert with this. So people were trying to play judge and figure out, right, how on earth do they say? And I think Albert himself said he felt it would probably be a 51%, 49%, pick in the end between them. And a few people sort of felt that the base potentially, and we were talking about this a minute ago, potentially could swing it away from him simply because there was the potential for it to draw focus from the model. How do you feel about that?
I having held them both in the hand, I think the base might have tipped it in Albert's favour to win. And I think what we were talking about, dioramas in real life, seeing them, I think that this base is much better in person because of your depth perception, because you can, it drops into the background a lot better because it's 3D, and when you hold it, you don't lose focus on it. And I could see people's argument that there's a lot going on and things like that. But yeah, I think in the hand it's different and it doesn't feel that way. And I think, it's really tough because Maxime's base was simple, but did it need anything more? But then would it be enhanced with more of a complex base? I don't really know. I mean, Maxime's was just so crazy. It doesn't need any more, but maybe it could be enhanced with something. But this is probably some of the best technical painting I've ever seen on Maxime. So hard.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Big time. Heimdall's just said in the chat he thinks the helmet might be from the 90s Tyrion model.
It is,
which is
yeah.
pretty
I've just
awesome,
clicked.
right?
I've just clicked.
So great spot there. Still one of the just such a nice model that. But anyway, I'm sure we've talked about it on previous episodes. Old Jez Hyles, I'm sure we have. But I'd love to see you all really going at it in the chat in a positive way. Yeah, this will be a nerdy episode. There's no two ways. If you've come for the drama, this is not your show.
Drama-free zone.
Yeah, this is about like drooling and not understanding quite how people have managed to colour stuff in as well as they have done. So let's move on to the piece that was challenging, and I think everybody was happy that it was that close between these two. I don't think anyone was going to be, if either of them won, I don't think anyone was going, oh, the other should have. It would have been, yeah, fair enough. Like
there's two Slayer swords,
but that's not always the case, is it? Not with the
last one.
It goes in percentages. There's often, I think often the golds are quite often pretty obvious when I've looked at competitions in the past. But then the sword, again, it's easy to pick normally, right?
Yeah.
Or obvious to pick. But there's these two really were neck and neck and very different. Which again, someone asking, "Oh, do we think we'll see non-heavy metal stuff?"
Well, neither of those two are.
Right. So this scratch built, sculpted, whatever you want to call it, created, dreamed up.
There's the green.
Just to prove it.
Bloody hell.
Entirely out of Karamak.
I'd eat that. It looks well tasty, doesn't it?
And so this is one thing I've asked you a lot this as well. So I don't know if anyone knows in the chat about this. The head, is it a thing for Nurgle? Because it looks a lot like David Soper's head from that Predator tank, and it's got a little bit of Gothmog about it, I think, as well.
Some of the
from Lord of the Rings. Is it a thing?
Is there an art of it?
Is there a piece of artwork? Or
like
something?
Realms of Chaos and stuff like that? They all kind of had that weird looking face and similar styles in that face in the Nurgle.
Well, when we interview Maxime, we'll ask him all about it.
Yes, true. Yeah, very true, very true. Yeah, prepared to see this model a lot in the future. God, man, the pressure, just the painting well enough anyway, but the pressure, like on a one-off piece, that you've made. It's just,
I think,
especially at this point, imagine like the hour count at this point and going, right.
He did 400, he said.
Unreal.
Can you imagine, every now and then you get a spray can that just fucking goes sideways on you, or like a varnish that goes misty, or just imagine all that.
I will never do a one-off. I'm telling you this. I'm never doing it.
You painted a print once, didn't you, and hated it? Like,
yeah.
You can't do a one-off. You strip everything you paint about 6 times before you.
Did I strip the Necron?
You break it within the first week as well.
I'm doing 3 in a row. No stripping, thanks.
You're just too strong, mate. You break your miniatures. You break your trophies.
I think Maxime though, he's at such a level now where like that kind of nervousness doesn't even come into it. It doesn't faze him. Like it's nothing. He'll just paint it and do an amazing job.
As you do.
As you do.
He's just the best.
This is arguably my favourite model I've ever seen ever.
You were talking like if we look at if we think back to the elf, Andy, you were saying, the colour palette and the contrast and all the rest of it. This feels a lot more limited when it comes to colour and whatnot too, right? But deliberately so, yeah. So where's the impact coming from this? So let's pretend you don't know it's been hand sculpted, that you just think it's a great kit bash. Because let's be fair, the Nurgle, the Plague Marine range has some, if you like Nurgle models anyway, has some absolute bangers in it anyway, right?
Payable.
What about this is putting it, because it's very different in every way. Like in the minute, you couldn't get more different, really. Big ugly pig Nurgle lad versus pretty elf.
It's the dichotomy of me and Andy.
Different colours, it's just different styles. What's making you go, no, I think this one's got the sword?
Detail. Honestly, the detail is silly. Every millimeter is basically freehand. It's like everything's textured, but nothing ruins the overall view. So when you look from it from afar, it's not simple is the wrong word, but it looks like, fairly regularly rendered. You got a bit of yellow, and when you hold it, every millimeter of that yellow is textured, and it's immaculate. There's no lumps, there's no bumps. It's smooth, it's sharp, it feels real. And just that bit where you've got the teeth going into the top of the thigh, and it blends from that flesh into the yellow. Yeah, the back's insane. But yeah, every millimeter has been done with care and detail. And it's like it's like a big thing shrunk down. More, and it's a level of detail that I think is very rare to see. And if you look at like the shiny Marines of 10 years ago, where the armor would be rendered with one blend, and it was really impressive because you got a lot of contrast in a tight space. But yeah, it's just every millimeter of it is detailed, and I've not seen a figure that detailed, to be honest, ever.
No, I've never picked up a model that size before, looked at it, and thought that it's the neatest thing I think I've ever seen. It's like insane from every angle, and it's all one thing as well. How he managed to paint it that neat, as all one piece, it just boggles the imagination.
And he wasn't winning a few years ago. He won the sword a long way back with his forest giant, but I remember when he came back and he painted a Guilliman, and for me it was some of the best non-metallic metal gold I'd ever seen, and it was a level above everyone else. And you could, when he posted a picture of his wet palette of painting gold, you're like, well, you can tell this guy's an art teacher, because how he played with color and things in gold was a level I didn't understand. It was much better than any non-metallics I could do, but it didn't win. And I think he basically took the feedback and because they were like, it probably wasn't clean enough for Golden Demon or whatever, just to make a long conversation short. And I think he's gone, all right, so I've got to be a bit cleaner. And he's just done what he can do. And his understanding and knowledge is incredible because he does teach art. And he's just taken that and got it super technical as well. And it's true metallic metal, which is cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Very cool.
You've got your Slayer sword winner in the chat at the minute. So just answering some of those questions.
Giving us the knowledge bombs.
Yeah, so and it's been confirmed. It definitely is Tyrion, the dragony bit.
I like it even more. It's just how many more boxes do you want to tick? It's got a bit of old high elf in.
So there we go. Yeah, so quite a special demon from a fan's point of view. I think for me, again because the sword was no one knew. And it's been a long time, I think, certainly since I've got back into it. It's been quite a long time since that, I think, has happened. Like a lot of the other years, like there's been a few contenders, but really everyone's been like, yeah, do you know what? That is the one.
I think it's been a long time since it was just a 2-horse race that was so blatantly obvious.
And I think, I'm not experienced with it. It's the two that are that far ahead.
Yeah. Everyone else was behind.
There's been plenty of years where it's that two that are that extra fraction of a percent, above anyone. It's pretty mad. It's pretty mad. And I still can't get over not seeing all the flipping entries. There were that many of them.
I think last time you had Clayton was the clear sword winner.
Yeah.
That was one piece. I think what's interesting, because both of these people competed. So Albert competed and Maxime did. And they both did their style. They were both amazing pieces. But I feel both pieces they brought to this one were a level up, because Maxime brought his Nurgle Orc and he sculpted that a long time ago. He did a better sculpt, a better paint job. And Albert did, the Gretchen. And even though the Gretchen's incredible, a bigger canvas like the Lumineth, there's more to show off on, and just both of them elevated. So I think
it felt very serious, didn't it? Like it felt very like Albert's 2 grots from the last one, and actually Maxime's Nurgle Orc on a personal level, right? I love them probably more than this elf and the Blade Marine model, but that's because I like the subject more with them. But they felt a little bit more like, oh yeah, it's those guys. They've won this. Yeah, of course they have. They're fab. Like these felt very serious. Like this was like coming in. Like I'm not fucking around anymore.
I've got a question I'm gagging to ask, right? And I've only just thought of it. What would happen if Chris hadn't brought his jewel and it was at this demon? So those 3 pieces. And I honestly couldn't call that. But I'm actually really glad it didn't, because then Chris gets his sword he deserves, and then Albert got his sword he deserves. But what do you think would have happened if those three were together? Clayton had brought it. Clayton versus the High Elf, basically.
Tough again, though, right? Three very different styles.
I think Clayton would have won it.
Yeah.
Still.
Because it's most Warhammer?
I don't know, mate, because I think the painting on Albert's
is better.
Higher,
it's better. I'm not denying that. I just think the drawing, I think, was
you'd need multiple judges for that. I'd want at least 5 judges to make that call. You'd have to be like, guys, come in.
Well, that's a great point. So, Tua's just saying in the chat, he's saying these two are ahead of the rest of the people going there, but aren't they also two of the people that have been competing for the longest? And that's fair. But I think we see particularly, the Games Day, Warhammer Fest, Golden Demon. In the UK, traditionally, you've seen probably the highest concentration of names, right? Of winning painters. Like the last years in the autumn, there was a ton of phenomenal painters there, and there was a ton of absolutely wonderful models. But these two just had that very serious, like it's no more fucking around, right? It feels like the bar's been raised now.
The bar for gold is very high now.
Is mad, and single mini has probably always been the bar, right? For the painting side of things, and it's just mad. It's just mad.
Well, you can see those getting more and more, but because you've got, like you said, historically and even now, 40k single fig and AOS single fig, two of the hardest categories. I know it does change; it very much varies depending on who goes, but it's also the most popular categories, and also, in my opinion, the most difficult. So if you've got that on a regular basis, that creates a precedent that if you enter these, you've got to up your game. So then if you get multiple, and if you look at the who's who of painting, a lot of them are in those two categories. Just by the nature of that, it's going to push it further and further and further and further. And I'm not like laying into any other categories, but if you compare what won gold in those categories to gold in other categories, it is a different level, I think. It's almost like, but I think it's almost because people just enter those, or the quality of people that enter those is making that go further and further quicker than the other categories, if you know what I mean. They don't have a chance to catch up because your top tier 2%.
They've got to chase each other, right?
Yeah, you're fighting. You're fighting against. If you go in single fig, you're fighting against these guys. So you have to bring your A game, or even reevaluate your A game and think of, right, what can I do? Because there's only three demons in that category of the day, and you could paint something that, like, if you look at the commended in this category, they were all amazing, and they all could have won something. So even that, it just means that it's more and more difficult. But because of that, it pushes it further and further. So you have to be better and better, and that's why people are creating things like this.
But there's every single choice from conception through now.
Yeah,
and it will, fluctuate. Undoubtedly,
it will,
over competitions. And I think the fact that we only had the last GD 6 months ago, meant that certain artists you might expect to see there weren't there, partly because they weren't willing to take 5 months or weren't able to take 5 months of their life off to achieve these things. I didn't at all take your comment as trying to lessen the talent of the people at all. I don't think that's how it came across. But it was just quite shocking, I think, and that's very, very exciting for someone who's a fan of competitive painting, and for someone who wants to see it become more and more viewed, and attended and all of that. This was a really, really good painting competition to promote it all. And it's kind of why I'm a bit pissed off it hasn't been plastered all over community with multiple articles every single day. And this, that, and the other. I get it. You've got the commended article, great. And has the 360 gone up of the piece yet?
It was in the little video, but that would be probably all we see of it.
Right, which I just, yeah. Anyway, it's amazing. What else are we going to?
We had improvements, man. We had massive.
The GD, the Golden Demon itself. We might as well move on to talk about that. Are we ready to talk about the comp as a whole?
Go on.
Was run, I thought, fantastically. I'm talking about what Workshop are doing with this product. Like, if anyone else had run a painting competition with this many entries of this quality, with 2 pieces that are seminal pieces in their categories, it should be absolute furore around the internet if you're into painting. You know, I think, and that's where I want it to get to. You know, it's a good thing. Like, you know, it's
absolutely
it's a good thing. Should there be another step between Pin, Commended, and Demon? Nah, there's enough steps in there at the minute. I like the addition of Commended. I do, particularly what they did with it at the awards ceremony this time.
Means more now.
Yeah. So, for those of you that aren't aware, the awards ceremony for this year's Golden Demon was done in the theatre at the venue, which is literally a classic sort of theatre, rake seating, stage, all the rest of it, presented by Adam Troke. I thought very well presented, because he let it be all about the painting. So we had a huge, great screen with images projected onto it, and every single commended entry in a category was put on a top shelf in the display cabinets, and when you went to look at them. And then when you got to the awards ceremony, all of the people that were commended stood on the stage together. It was as awkward as it sounds for some people, but no one knew what was what, and that meant you got to see some amazing reactions. And an absolute highlight for me was that. But I think, yeah, you guys talk about it a bit. I'll wrap it up. You guys talk about it.
I pooed myself.
It was shit. It was just fucking terrifying.
It was the best one. It was the best one.
So all 3 of these boys, incidentally, got up onto that stage, and I think that's what's exciting. Right now, there's another little thing to shoot for. Right, Commended's cool. It's a cool little card. It's really nice. Like, super nice to be recognised. But to get up on that stage, rub shoulders with the other people, it's pretty rad. Like,
it was very cool.
For me, I was just happy to even be on the stage with what was in Sigmar Squad. Like, you had Rich Gray, you had Raxhammer, Roger Axelson, who won with his Trolls and Goblins and stuff like that. I was just happy to be there. Like, it was,
absolutely.
As soon as bronze was announced, I just turned to Rich and I just went, "Well, at least I'm in good company."
It's when they brought. Oh, sorry, Rich, go on.
No, go on.
No, you, mate.
We both did that when bronze went, I think, Rich.
Yeah. It was terrifying. I like the way that they sprung it on us, though, as in we were sat there going, right, we can hide down here, so if things go absolutely sideways, it's all good. No harm, no foul. And they were like, right, cool, if you got a Commended, you got to get on stage. And me, Jamie, and Andy were all sat there. We all just went, fuck, all at exactly the same time, basically, because they're like, oh, good. Practice our Joey face from Friends, where you have to be happy that you did it wrong.
And this, this is a stunning, fairly modern theatre. It's probably not shy of 1,000-seater theatre.
That was amazing.
And it was every single seat was taken. And you had, you had the winners were all on the front rows, so we wouldn't have to clap for 17 minutes to wait for people to go up and down the stairs and all the rest of it.
Great logistics.
I wanted to do the walk of shame. I wanted to be like,
right. And there were a few people who were literally walking off the stage, not even getting to their seat, turning around and walking back up onto the stage to go up for the next category, which was hilarious. And again, should be celebrated. But you had pockets in the crowd of people's friends, that had stayed to watch the ceremony because they were really proud of their mates, and I'm getting to sit there watching these 3 going up and our other ones of our friends going up on the stage, and it was just the best feeling, the best community vibe you can imagine, and just a lot of admiration in the room. Everybody was getting claps. It was hilarious. You had the little groups, the Spaniards in particular, giving it all of this. You had the greatest Golden Demon acceptance celebration ever from Matt Kennedy, who stopped just short of kicking over the podium and snogging Adam Trophy. It's incredible. But they did. A few people have mentioned in the chat when it came to the sword announcement. So again, they brought the golds up on stage. It's going to win the sword, and again at this point, everybody's still not sure. It's kind of gone as we've expected, but we're not sure. And then Albert gets it, so the whole place goes absolutely bananas. And then they're like, right, we really want to hype this up even more, so we're going to give Albert the sword, but when we give it him, we don't want you to cheer. We want you just to wait. And they were like, can you do that? And obviously not one of those 1,000 people in the auditorium were going to play that game. And
they did in America.
Adam Trope knew that. I know, but that's a whole other conversation, right? Adam Trope knew that we were not going to play this game either, but everybody went along with it. And I think the second his first finger touched the handle of the sword, the place just erupted.
Yeah.
And this
was everybody
on their feet, all the rest of it. And as a fan of this hobby, and as we do this show, we try and promote this sort of painting, to see that level of just care and excitement given to it by a company that are regarded, by many as that's what miniatures painting is, right? It's GW. This is what you do. Golden Demon, whether you like it or not, makes a lot of people paint miniatures. And to finally see that level of sort of respect, and excitement was overwhelming. It was absolutely,
and from people as well, because I was talking to Maxime and he was like, "Oh, when I won the sword, everyone went home." Yeah. And it was, it was just us lot, because always the gamers go home.
What many years ago was it, right? When it was a broken projector at the back of a room at Coventry Stadium, right?
It was the last one. It was the last fest, wasn't it? 2019.
2019, yeah.
Yes.
I think what this fest has really shown is that they've actually they've cared a bit more about Golden Demon. Like, I still think it could have been earlier in the day, the awards. But there was doing the commended on the top means that there is going to at least be an audience.
Yeah.
Well, I think though it shows that people still really care about Golden Demon, because I think something we spoke about as well was we were a bit worried. Right, it's that late in the day, the gaming will have all finished. It's Monday. I was worried that we'd get there and there would literally be like fucking 40 of us sat at the front of the auditorium.
It was standing remotely. In a 1,000-seater,
and that's the thing. But it's a fantastic thing that people really do care. People who, it was a long weekend, man, and getting back. Some people have very far to travel, but sticking around just to see that. Even those that weren't necessarily involved in that, they didn't have an entry that was in, or they hadn't even entered. They still wanted to see who won. I think
probably because they wanted some entertainment. We'll
talk about that. Yeah. Mac Readiness saying in the chat, as a dad, the Youngblood Silver reaction almost broke me. I completely agree. Like, I was legitimately close to shedding manly tears at that point.
I'd say. Sorry.
No, go on.
No, I was going to say, I'd say the only thing with the Youngbloods, I perhaps wouldn't have got all the Youngblood commended onto the stage.
Yeah,
it's a difficult one. But if you're going to do that, everyone needs to get something.
Yeah.
Good lesson. You win some, you lose some.
They've already got commended.
I just think
it did feel pretty brutal then going up first too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if one or two of them quite understood what was going on.
Yeah. Mate, they took it. They took it well. It was good.
And we might as well chat briefly about Youngbloods now we said it. Unreal.
Where's the slides?
Yeah.
The quality. Absolutely unreal. These are under 16, these kids.
Better than most of the shite I paint.
And there were many of them as well. The 5 commended entries were all fantastic, but there was a lot of entries in there, and it is terrifying what some of these might go on to do.
Yeah.
If this is the stage they're at right now. Maxime, of course, won Youngbloods, back in 2004.
I think this Youngblood generation shows is that now with the access to the internet, tutorials, instant access to anything you want to learn. It's
Patreon.
Exactly.
There is a bit of that. Yeah.
it proves the point that they are going. That these kids are literally going to be the next Slayer Sword winners when they're old enough.
Yeah, but I said this. I think when it was back when we talked about the Slayer Swords. The Youngbloods from American GD was sort of talking about it. this is at 16. Even if they go off and have the whole booze and bonking phase that people have, a lot of people have that little sabbatical, right, and then get back to it. Even if they do that, this is the base that they're then going back to build from. I just don't. Where's it going to go?
We're going to look in 10, 15 years' time. We're going to look at the people that are willing to sword them when we haven't got a look in. And we'll be like, Jesus Christ! Remember when we used to be able to do this? Yeah, it's like when you're playing rugby and the 17-year-olds are 6'6" and 18 stone. You're like, this is pass me by now. I'm done,
mate. I'm like, out of all these 16-year-olds, I'm like, stop being taller than me. Well, 14-year-old girls actually, but.
Youngblood win a Slayer sword? No. So Youngbloods and Open are separate categories. They're not. They've got different awards. They don't win Golden Demons. They are a separate thing. Although it would be amazing if they were open to. Because can you imagine if?
Can you enter though? Can you enter? Because you go? I can enter. Yeah.
So
you can be 12 of them.
Iago won the Slayer sword in Spain at 13.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
I've got a question that it's really important that I would really like to answer, which is, do you think we need a woman's category? And they said, as a woman, I feel we don't. And if I win anything, I want to be competing against everyone equally. And I think that no. But I wanted to talk about it because I have seen people talk about this in some videos. And people saying, "Oh, no women won this time," but they also said, "I don't think a woman." And that's what I wanted to say is some of the best pieces of all time are by women. Victoria Lamb, absolutely legendary pieces. Some of the first OSL. I think my favourite Lord of the Rings piece ever is by Anna. That's incredible. And yeah, there's a lot of women that have won and done some amazing stuff. Just this time, they didn't. Has anyone else got any thoughts on that?
I think
there doesn't need to be, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's it's something that we all, it's a fair contest. It's just on your ability to paint, and you get that ability to paint from putting in the time and the effort and getting better and progressing. I think. It shouldn't be separate categories specifically for women. I think it was really nice to see how many there were there at the event, as I think that was probably the most I've seen at any one of these events. So I think that was really good. But I don't think that it should be its own category. If anything, that just creates more division and doesn't make it as inclusive for everybody else.
Victoria Lamb won a Slayer sword, right?
Won a few.
Yeah.
I think that this particular one, it just came down to sheer numbers. Like there was it's like we're a niche hobby and Golden Demon's a niche within the niche.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that perhaps at this one, probably there was just a lot less women that potentially entered. And, with nearly 1,000 people entering, statistics were just, what they are. But they just.
But there's a history of a lot of amazing ones that have won. This time they didn't. But I think I saw some videos where they just got their facts wrong. I don't think a woman's ever won, and it's like, come on, this is how little you know about.
Almost as if they're making a video
just to get a reaction.
Just a bit of a. So the next thing we want to talk about with the actual event itself, if we're happy, we covered awards.
It was the best one.
It was, and I think every person agrees that was there, that he spoke to, and hopefully that is now, even if the venue changes, hopefully that is, they've seen the value in that.
I would say the only thing with the awards is that they were set up to stream it, but they didn't.
Yeah,
it should have been streamed.
Yeah,
and I don't know what their reasoning could possibly have been to not.
Yeah. So to the best of our knowledge, and we are privileged to know a little bit more about the goings on at various companies and all the rest of it. But there are many different departments involved in Games Workshop in the public facing side of Games Workshop as we see it. So Warhammer Fest wasn't run by one team; it was many teams, and I think it's really important to recognise that certain teams and certain individuals within these teams do outstanding jobs, and they want it just as much as we want these sorts of things. And I think I completely agree, you Matt. They managed to stream the cosplay, didn't they? Am I right? Or certainly it was going to be streamed, so that managed to get streamed. It did seem very foolish, sat in that theatre, why that wasn't going out on a channel that they already have, on a Twitch channel and all the rest of it, right? Very, very peculiar, not to stream it. But yeah, hopefully, if it's not a theatre, it'll still be cool. Wherever we end up next year. So what did you think of the venue itself?
Great.
I loved it.
It's called Manchester Central, so it's an old railway station that's now an events space. It's essentially an enormous, great hangar, very, very cool, some sort of industrial revolution architectural, that kind of thing, with separate rooms off to the side, which included a theatre, which is where they did where they did the reveals, and fuck all else. And then big food court and bits and bobs like that. Smack in the middle of Manchester. Happy?
Very happy.
Preferred it when it was on.
It was
too
great.
far away, but the venue was great.
Venue was great, just not on a bank holiday. The weekend again, please.
Yeah.
I tell you, before we do start talking about our feedback on it as an event, is there anything else you want to talk about as Demon to do the winners and all the rest of it? There's still some content from us to come. It just hasn't been signed off yet, so we can't release it. Again, our experience and interviews, got tons of interviews with various painters and hobbyists from the event, and that will all be coming out over the next, we hope, week. But it all depends when it gets signed off. But was there anything else you wanted to say about Demon in particular?
I think so.
Just very well run. The judges worked their asses off getting through.
Yeah.
One of the issues we had was we wanted to do our cabinet walk around like we did at the last one. So we were there after hours on the Sunday night. We were allowed to be in there till about 10. So we were trying to get the footage and get everything done. And I think they had just got through 40k single.
Yeah.
They had all the other categories still to go with the commended entries. So we just weren't able. The commended entries didn't exist at that point for us to talk about and see. So we managed to beg, borrow, and all the rest of it, and they let us back in again at 7 a.m. So we were there, bright-eyed, ready to go, and still we weren't able to get all of them. And the guys, as I say, the judges were there when we left at 10, and they'd been in there for a while when we got there at 7. So there was an awful lot of care put into that competition, making sure everything got its time. And I think that's a huge effort from that team, guys and girls that did that. So yeah, big thanks to them. Absolutely. Right. Come on then.
Quickly, just want to talk about the Open.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Open's pretty crazy at the moment, but a lot of chat has been about, basically, is there a buy-in to Open? Do you need to commission something to be able to enter? And the people that won this time are the exact same people that won last time, in a different order, with Darren, Tom, and David. And I think it's a tough one because you can win at the moment with something you've commissioned. And I think that, being honest, it will be hard to win unless you did get something commissioned. I wouldn't touch that category unless I had some mega sculpt, right? And that is basically a £2,000 buy-in to get a sculpt.
Or you're like Tom in the chat and you can just do it yourself.
Yeah. But that's the whole thing I'm talking about. That's cool.
There's a level of entry.
Yeah, if you can do that, then you should, and that's always been the case with can't remember the name off the top of my head, but the not Mike McVeigh,
Mike Anderson.
Not Mike Anderson, the High Elf, the best piece ever.
Martin
Foote, yeah, and that was super cool when Martin was doing that. So there's always been tradition of like staff sculpting big pieces, and that's what the open category should be. But should they crack down on the rule of you've got to do everything yourself? And I don't know, because I wouldn't want to stop creativity and getting to see amazing pieces, but at the same time, it seems a shame you have to get a commission to enter it. I just wondered what your thoughts were.
I mean, you can go into the event pack, and it does say I, my own, yourself, your, but that's open to interpretation.
Is it though, or is that pretty?
Yeah, but is that just a painting? Like,
yeah.
Because if you're taking that literally, that means you can't enter a Games Workshop model because they've sculpted it. So you can't be that.
I think Yeah, I think having like a line in there which says like any additional converting, sculpting has to be done by yourself. That might clear up a bit.
I know there isn't an answer to this that you necessarily want to give, but why would you make that if you had to? Why would you make the argument that it shouldn't be allowed if it is a commissioned piece?
All right, so Alejandro is the sculptor of David's piece, Thibaut's piece. He's amazing. We work with him a lot, and I know he's not available because I said, "Can I have a miniature?" And he said he's too busy, so I can't compete in open category because he's booked. And you can't compete. You can't compete with a sculpt like David Aroba's. The sculpt is too good to compete with, so I can't go and make a little diorama or something unless it's insane, right? But I don't know. I'm okay with it, but I do think it's worthy of discussion, and I don't mind which way it goes. I'm staying clear. I'm gonna get some pieces made that aren't Warhammer and enter them into Monty. But I would just like a discussion, or just like to know. Because I think it must be tough on the staff where it's the only category they can enter, and it's the time investments that's the big thing, right? Because if you've got to sculpt, you got to spend, I don't know how long, to say you've got to spend 100 hours on the sculpt. If you're paying someone else to do it, you don't have to put those 100 hours in. The model turns up and you do it, and you've got an incredible, impactful piece where you've just done like the painting. And this orc piece is worthy of the gold. I'm not saying anything against that. I love Alejandro. I love David. This paint job's incredible. But the sculpt affects the judging so much, and David didn't have to do that, right?
Tom's just said in the chat he's happy he'll sculpt us something for the next one. So there you go. That's now on the internet and is therefore legally binding and entirely factual. I think, Tom makes the point as well that Darren is proving that you can just win with out of the box minis
with sculpting a base,
right? CAD. So, but if we go back to bases, and this is probably an entire episode as well, so I don't know whether we should even go into this discussion now. Let's make it another episode, because I do think there's lots to talk about. And
I could draw a line under it and say that I think there needs to be a little bit of clarification, only because it's changed so much with 3D printing. So because that's changed, it's changed the nature of the open category, and all they need to do is go, you can commission sculpts, and then it's fine, and they can, we can leave these three to it, and Alejandro wins. I just think maybe a little bit of a clarification would be cool. That's all I'm saying. But I kind of don't want it to stop, because it's cool to see these pieces.
Right? We want to continue to see insane pieces like David's and Darren's, like and Tom's insane bust, like with his orcs. But yeah, it just needs clarification.
My problem though is just accessibility, right? Because Sergio won with an Alan Carrasco piece. Alan Carrasco is one of my dream sculptors, and I probably can't get him because I'm not friends with him. So I can't compete because I can't work with those sculptors, right? Just saying. And the sculpt gives you an advantage. If you've got an Alan Carrasco, you've got an advantage because he's incredible. And the same, we work with Alejandro for Cult of Paint miniatures. We love him. And he's such a good sculptor. You can't just go on Thingiverse and get any old turd, right? So
also, amazing sculptors are rarer than amazing painters, aren't they?
They are, but it's worth saying, like, again, with CAD now, I think more accessible, even in the last 5 years, is even in the time that you've been producing miniatures, there are people coming through rapidly. But it's exciting, and you see this happen I was talking to Rich about this on the drive back. I'm one of the sports I really love to follow is strongman. That is becoming bigger and more popular all the time, more money in it and all the rest of it, and more eyes on it, and with that becomes more scrutiny, and things like rules come up, as boring as they sound. There starts to become more and more arguments for we need a tighter set of guidelines and a level playing field and so on and so forth. And I think it's only a good thing that is happening, because it shows there's more eyes on this than there ever has been. It's got more potential than it ever has had. It's a good time. But we don't want to talk about rules too much. That's for gamers. This was finally, gamers get fucking tournaments every frigging weekend, right? And they get, the wars, blah, blah, blah. Finally, we got a big one. And I think that's why this felt so good, right? In the theatre this felt like, I see friends going to like Age of Sigmar World Championships and things like that. And it's like, great. It is cool. But finally, us paint nerds have got one from Games Workshop.
Forks in the chat says, do we think it's time that GW started making busts and more display models again? Yes.
Yes, please.
Hire Tom. Make Tom do us a range of busts, please.
Shut him in a cupboard, give him a bunch of Black Library books, and just let him go.
We're gonna make a template email, and we're just gonna spam the shit out of whatever email GW PLC needs to be.
Tom or busts. Or busts.
I want big orc busts.
Bust campaign. Right. Then I'll get on that once I get through
clarification
40
will be good,
things.
That's the conclusion.
Yeah, that's the conclusion. We need Tom making
and
busts.
enforcement. I think Heimdall's right in the chat. So, just seen the time. So let's super brief. Really, just there's been plenty of videos out over the last week and blogs and this lot about people's experiences of Fest as a whole. I would massively caveat our opinions on this with that we were there as influencers, content creators, whatever you want to call it. We have an NDA. We receive early access copies of things from Games Workshop to paint, and we were invited to this event in that capacity, and we worked this event. There was no two ways. It was a wonderful time, but we worked many hour days whilst we were there. So it was very busy for us. There was a lot for us to do. There was a lot of people for us to talk to and things to do. And that is not the experience that, for instance, some of my friends had going as punters. And I'm sure some of your guys' mates as well. So we've tried to sort of think what we as punters would like to have seen more of, to make it all feel as awesome as the awards of Golden Demon felt, and this is what we came up with. So
I think the biggest one for me, because I've been thinking about this since we've been talking about it and prepping for the episode and everything. I was thinking back to the ones back in the day that we had at the Rico, where we had, or even, I know it's not the same event, but it was a similar thing, like the Horace Heresy Weekenders and stuff like that. When we had the studio stuff there, it felt like they were it was like a sneak behind the curtain, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little glimpse into the thoughts.
And you mean when you had the studio staff, the heavy metal staff, the artists, at desks that you could go and talk
to. Yeah. And you know, these people have been creating content that you consume and that you love for, you know, nigh on 20 years for some people, maybe even more for others. And it was an opportunity for you to actually talk to that individual, tell them that you really enjoyed their work, thank them for it, and maybe get a little bit of detail on one of your favorite characters or a bit of your favorite artwork. And it, in my opinion, it added a real, like, there was a soul to it, and it made this. And Games Workshop is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you don't want to see, in my opinion, the companies that had a real soul to them kind of become these soulless big companies. And I think Warhammer Fest was a way for them to kind of link back to individuals who really got off on that level of interaction with the people that they admire. And not having that, the event was great and I loved it. And like you said, we were very busy, but it felt a bit clinical. It felt a bit soulless in that you didn't get that interaction with the individuals that you wanted to talk to about whatever it was. It could be even remember, like last one, there was people in the rooms with the big like the screens that they were like creating art just as they sat there. And like they were taking pictures of like dreadnoughts and putting them in these amazing battle scenes, and like just watching them do that, I was like, oh my god, that's how they do that. Just little things like that.
It really adds to the personality of it all, and like it was a real stark difference from 2019 Fest to this Fest, with just like it felt less personable, not having like the people that create all your stuff to talk to. Well, that was kind of for me anyway. But it can't
be when it grows, right? So I think the problem is, in my opinion, the company gets bigger, therefore there's more risk to staff, therefore they have to scale back the staff's involvement, right? So you got the event's grown, it's bigger, but you can't be as flexible because you're such a bigger company. So we all know that having all the staff, that'd be amazing, and that's got to be difficult for the company. So if they can't risk some of the staff, the other option is, they can.
It is difficult.
They can get people like us to do demos. Is the thing.
Yeah, I would counter what you're saying. I think what you said then, Andy, the key word there is scale it back, not just stop.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, we don't now get interactions with individual staff members right from the studios, but it's not been replaced with anything. Now I get what you're saying. Having them just there at the desk that anyone can come up and talk to and do this, that, and the other. Okay, maybe that's not viable anymore. But you had an enormous theatre that was utilised for all of an hour each day with some reveals.
Exactly.
Could you not have had panels all day? You've got guys now like Adam Trout, like Eddie Eccles, that are becoming slicker because they've had more experience with their media, training and all the rest of it, who I'm sure would do a fantastic job chairing those panels so they can control, what's happening. But it was just nothing. It was just.
I agree with that. Like, go more Comic-Con, because if you think about it, at Comic-Con, if you've got Guardians of the Galaxy there or the DC guys, not everyone gets to ask Henry Cavill.
No.
What's happening in the next Superman. They don't get access to it. But if it's in a controlled manner, like you said, if you had a panel up and they had people running around with mics, and you could stand up and ask a question, or even if they were just like if they really want to screen it, just they could send out a few for any questions for these teams, and you could sit there as they read out and answered the questions for them. I think I agree with what you said.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Drew. I think there are so many points of failure. If you have, 40 people, 50 people from various different studios all sat there just having a chinwag with somebody, and someone just lets slip that there's, I don't know, a brand new plastic Primark.
Full grid,
Yeah, plastic foreground. They go, oh shit. Or, they used to have the folders with the artwork in it, and they flip and there's plastic foreground. And you go, oh shit. I can see, obviously, that's such a big risk for Games Workshop.
But there's ways around that.
You just check, right? You check. You go, this is your present.
You check.
And it hasn't got the Emperor in it.
Because if you go to Comic-Con and you ask a stupid question, the PR people instantly go, we're not answering that. And that's fine. I think there needs to be
something like that.
Exactly. Scale back. It's not going to be what it used to be, but it seems a real shame that there wasn't. So I'll jump in with my biggest one that I would want to see more of than the next one, and that's miniatures. Considering this was Games Workshop, a miniatures company, in my opinion, make the best plastic, fantasy sci-fi miniatures there are. I love the background, love everything. I love the miniatures unashamedly. And the best things outside of Golden Demon, out of Warhammer Fest or Games Day, would be the big displays. Whether they were the Ultramarines chapter in full, Orcs Drift, when they've released the last few editions of the main games, they've always done cool, big, bespoke tables like you would see at Warhammer World, these big dioramas. There were, I'm trying to remember, there were basically 3 cabinets there, with some miniatures in the relatively small shop area. It really seemed bizarre.
It was a weird choice.
I thought it would just be and again, we kind of knew about the whole access to staff thing because there's been a few smaller events since 2019 and that hasn't existed. But that was a real shock to me that there wasn't. I honestly don't feel that if you hadn't been explicitly told by people, I don't think I'd have known that there was a new edition of 40k coming. Where was the massive Tyrannid Horde versus Space Marine, versus Ultramarines? I just don't understand it.
There should have been a massive display board depicting some of the background in the slap bang in the centre. It's the first thing you see when you walk into that hall. And
there was, they dressed the venue really cool. There was lots of props and things like that you might have seen in some of the videos. The video game stands did a great job with all of that, but the main GW models, where were they? And
there's just not enough for an event that big.
There wasn't anything, mate, was there? It's not even it wasn't I wish there'd been a bit more of this. It's there was not one display. The only miniatures there were in 3 cabinets, and they were that you see when you walk into Warhammer World in the shop. They were the new ranges, which was great, which is nice to see. Don't get me wrong, but when 10,000 people, that's all there is for them to look at.
That's why they loved our meet and greet, because they're the new minis.
Whether you like content creators or not, they are here, and we are here, I guess you have to say. And maybe that's the future of it. There is more, just so there's more for people. Our meet and greet ran for nearly 3 hours, and we didn't.
It's supposed to be 45 minutes.
It's supposed to be 45 minutes. It was amazing to meet everyone that wanted to chat. But I do wonder if there's an element of that there was fuck all else for them to do. So they thought they'd come and have a natter with us and look at some models that were out on the table.
More models, man. More models to look at.
So yeah, that's my one anyway.
I think though that everyone's been vocal about it, and there is no way they haven't heard about it. And to be fair to them, this is the first big one in the UK since. So a little bit of leeway, and I just think next time they've had all this feedback, they've got to get more stuff to do. And if they don't listen to that, then that'll be a bit odd. So I think a little bit of leeway for this one. I mean, the problem is, like you said, I had an amazing weekend. It's all my favourite weekends ever. But one day I didn't go to the event. I just had a lovely time. But we're very fortunate that we have a lot of friends and stuff like that. But I would have spent more time in the event if there was stuff to do. And I really want to see all the heavy metal jobs. I spent most of my time looking at the heavy metal lizard men, which was absolutely joyous. But I want to see all the heavy metal stuff from the last year, really, because it should be an annual thing, and it should be everything from the year. Display boards. I think 4 tables for demoing 40k for 10,000 people is hilarious. You've got to spend more money, basically.
Quite the queue.
Fair play to the people that were demoing that. They were doing 12, 13-hour days with no breaks, doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And also, I think a good thing, those of us that we know, gamers that were at the event, they said that it was a well-run, the various different kill team or all the other bits and pieces. They said that it was well-run and all the bits and pieces with that were really good. It was just, if you're there to, like you said, look at miniatures or speak to people from the company that are allowed to talk to you, there was not a lot to do.
I think it's also a shame in the fact because when I was speaking to a few of them, that were just sort of there in their civilian capacity.
Yeah.
A lot of their recruitment drive comes from talking to people in person at events. So it's
also we all got the little slips underneath our entries, didn't we? Was that a thing?
Yeah.
That thing.
Join the team, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But it was a shame, but because like one of my,
I think they'll change it, right?
Yeah.
They'll.
I hope they do.
I think there's no way they haven't heard. Oh shit, there was nothing to do. Like, how are they not work out something to do next time? I'm happy. They don't have to add anything for me, but I think add some stuff. But do you know what? I'd love to do demonstrations there. It'd be an absolute joy, and I hope from. They let us do a little meet and greet and even had our stand up, and that was brilliant. I was so grateful for that, and hopefully that not going drastically wrong, and we didn't say anything bad. It's so cool to do a demo, wouldn't it? It'd be unreal to do a demo. You love it.
Yeah.
So we will.
Hopefully,
we will see, won't we? But we're already running longer than most episodes, and I thought this was going to be a short one.
No.
But just before we wrap all that up, our experience was very, very different, I think, to most people's. And without being cheesy and corny and all the rest of it, this was really our first time out in the wild as a four since we've been doing, Cult Paint's more than just 4 people, but the 4 of us since we've been doing the podcast and all the rest of it. And to constantly be having people coming up and just saying hello, we like listening to the podcast, we like watching the channel, all the rest of it. It was incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So thank you all very, very much.
It was an event very much of the people.
Yeah, we had a right buzz. And it felt like this idea of Cult of Paint being not about one person, it's getting there. So and that's down to you lot. So yeah, let's just keep making noise, see what happens. Right. Speaking of making noise, and also making other things happen, there's a tiny bit of admin I want to get to just before we do the paint cultists. Have we got a slide for it, Matt? Is that all right? Yeah. Coming up. So obviously we're in 3rd season now, a Culture of Paint. It's fab. We're thoroughly enjoying it. All the rest of it. That's my Crute Hound, if you can hear that noise back there. I've been merrily trumping away during recording, just having a scratch. So great timing. So we are going to shift Culture of Paint to its own channel on YouTube. The live show now will continue to go out on this channel live. You'll get all the notifications will be as normal, and all the social media will stay exactly, just the cult account will stay exactly the same. But we're going to give Culture of Paint its own little channel, so a bit of space to breathe. We will upload the videos of the live stream, so you'll lose the chat, but you'll get the videos. We'll sort out the podcast element of it. A lot of people ask, can you do it as a sound, sound only thing? Audio only thing. We'll sort that out. But there's also lots of other things we'd like to do for Culture of Paint around basically stuff that isn't a miniatures tutorial. This is where we will be putting that type of stuff in the future. Interviews, visits, all that sort of thing. So just be aware of it. Go and have a look. Give it a follow. But I say the main show is going to stay live on here as it normally is, and all the announcements will stay as normal on social media. So, paint cultists, nearly 23,000 now. Tags. If you fancy following a tag on Instagram, expose you to different styles of miniatures, different styles of painting. Bang this one in. There's an awful lot on there for you to look at. I just grab a few each episode for us to have a quick look at, just that have caught my eye. I think I've done 5 for this one.
5 this time.
Well, we'll really try and remember I've done 5. So what's up first on this one? There's some good stories as well. There's no particular story around this one other than it tickles my pickle massively. This is I love this account. It's just, lovely.
Crazy.
This is when I'm reading the books, looking at the artwork. It's kind of got that vibe. There's tons of cool stuff. I love this miniature as well, actually. I've completely forgotten about it. It came out years ago. But the moon face, it's just so cool. Yeah.
It's crazy. I forgot that model even existed.
Yeah, me too, right? Because it's like a character that's on a disc normally and all the rest of it, and it's just the moon head. Oh, love it. And again, I said this account, I really, really love their take on painting Warhammer miniatures.
And now I've got Obscure in my head, which, if you've ever heard, have a quite amusing bass tone. And I've just got that in my head going. There
we
go. There you go.
So yeah,
Obscure bands will know what I'm on about.
Something weird and gribbly to start, and now I can't remember what else there is.
More gribblies.
Yeah, there was a theme. People have been doing really well posting their like greens of stuff, and then the painted version. And yeah, just again the plinth being just a bare bit of wood, it coming out of the plinth, the focus being ostensibly a bit of scenery. Yes, lovely, lovely, lovely. This is it. These miniatures painting now, right? Bring on the pairs. This is what we're looking at. So yeah, I don't really know what it's a take on. Is it a green man? I don't know.
It's like a spirit forest person creature.
Just a cool bit of sculpting and a super cool bit of painting.
Radagast in 1,000 years.
There we go. Yeah, just bet it was a fun project, man. God, I mean, look at all them different mushrooms.
Yeah, very cool.
Anything forest is a win.
Yeah, that's right. That's but again, I like the. Don't get me wrong. I love your black tower bases. Don't get me wrong. But it's cool seeing different takes. So what's up next?
So speaking of forests.
Oh yeah. And I've completely forgotten, other than it being cool, the reason I picked this one. I think it was their friend did this drawing, maybe.
Oh, that's cool.
Or it was for a friend, I think, this project, from what I can remember. And if you've watched last episode where I sort of lost it over a pair of pairs, this is a pair of shrooms, not dissimilar to shrooms I've seen in the past on walks, and just love it.
Smash them down.
It was a present for a friend.
There we go. Present.
Talking of mushrooms and presents, did you see Max's gift of the goblin giving it the finger? Did
the base remind you of that? The weird cutout you did.
It was. He actually was inspired by one of Max's recent posts for this.
Yeah,
there we go.
Incredible that piece is.
I want a Max gift.
And found Kev Adams, the sculptor of that, found his account after Max posted that, which was cool. So give him a follow if you like old school orcs. Kev Adams, search him out because he's the OG when it comes to that, and they're very, very cool. And I love that little like sort of scientific book drawing of them, to go with it. It's lovely presentation. It's just really, really
I'm desperate for an illustrator. I need some more concepts.
We need some illustrators, actually. So someone said I should shout that out on the show, and you just reminded me. Yeah, we're looking for some artists at the minute. So if that's your jam and you fancy working with us, drop us an email.
Draw me a skeleton.
What's that? What's that next, Matt?
This
is just cool, right? This was.
Oh yeah, Dr. Manhattan.
Just really liked this. I like the dots. The highlights makes him look a bit wet.
But he has that like ethereally glowing skin in the movie.
This is the only thing ever, Watchmen, where I've actually read a book before the films come out. I think it's the only time. So I could be like, oh, it's not as good as the book. And I'm like, oh, that does feel great, because I feel so superior because I read the book first now.
I'm glad you got it off your chest, mate. There we go.
I'm not going to lie. When Matt said it looks like it from the movie, I was like, what about the graphic novel?
What about the graphic novel, guys?
I don't think we're in any position to start throwing stones, considering what we're literally doing right now.
Nah, bruv, we are cool lads.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the sculpt is, whether it's a one-off or whether it's a 3D print of something,
or
whether
it's a human though, right?
For a company. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like it's not, I really like this size of sculpt of bust. Is it an academic? Would this is what you'd call this? We had this conversation before, didn't we? I really like this super tight bust.
It's an academic bust from O'Gara Miniatures.
There we go. Thanks, Matt. You're the best.
Knowledge bombs.
So there we go. And that means there's one more left, does it?
There is.
I'm really excited about this one. Please go and look at this account. Go and look at all of them. But
this
the
concept is
actual picture
amazing.
I sent out of this is not the picture he's used. So it's obviously this is Frodo putting on the ring from the films, cool rings, and it goes all crazy. So the backdrop, the scenery piece and everything is sculpted, but he had it cast in brass, not resin, because it's more durable. And he sort of looked at it as the card. He was like, if I'm going to paint this, I'm going to constantly snap these if it's resin. Constantly going to snap the tips off. So I had it cast up in brass and then painted that. And I thought, what a brilliant, just a thing to do and a way to think.
Imagine picking that up. Oh.
Right, I don't think you're picking. Yeah, it's the opposite of what you get now when you pick up a plastic Spartan and launch it across the room because you think it's going to weigh a kilo and a half. It's very much the opposite of that. But I've never come across this before. I thought it was a really, really cool answer to a problem. Because I mean, Andy, you would break this if that was resin. That would be broken within the day.
Now I'll tell you a story. My Necron, you know where my desk is. It went from one desk and it popped out my hand and it rolled to the other side of the room the day before I finished it, and the Resorb didn't snap off. I was like, how?
That's your one, though. That's your one for the year.
Yeah.
But you used to just make every model, Drew. You should cast it in bronze.
I don't know why I'm so clumsy with such small hands, though. Maybe it's because they're so small that they can't hold on to anything.
That's just a whole other topic for another episode. But yeah, why can't we buy merch? Sasha, you're going to have a lot of merch coming up very soon. By your man in the bottom left there is on it. So thank you for everyone who asked for merch and support and stuff. That is coming super soon. So yeah, chat's been amazing. Really, really, really good for this ep. So thank you. And yeah, sorry it's gone on a little bit longer than most of them, but I don't think anyone minds. If you want a refund, get in touch. So. Anything else you want to talk about before we sign off?
That was lovely. Lovely chat. Lovely event. Time to paint.
Time to paint the next ones. So yeah, we've got a bunch more content, interviews and our experiences of the things to keep an eye on the channel. That'll be coming out, fingers crossed, over the next week. So thanks, chaps. It was a really good one.
Looking forward to that.
Really quick before we go, can you tell us anything about the Wargames Atlantic Traitor Guard? Yeah, we're working on a project for Wargames Atlantic at the minute. Traitor Guard, incredible models. They're multi-part plastic. They're amazing. You'll be able to find out more about that very, very soon. And Ben is absolutely killing it with the box art that he's been doing for them. So yeah, I know that tickles a lot of people. So keep an eye out for that one. So yeah, thanks very much, chaps. Thanks, chat. We'll see you next time.
Bye.